Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. This week on Fixing South Sudan, a discussion about the role of Central Bank of South Sudan in stabilizing the economy. Is the Central Bank effectively exercising its key mandate? What is the bank doing about runaway inflation said to be comparable to Zimbabwe and Venezuela? And can the Bank of South Sudan fix the economy and fix South Sudan? Joining us in the show is Honorable Dier Tong, the Governor, Central Bank, Republic of South Sudan. Our pleasure to have him on Fixing South Sudan for the first time. Can he fix South Sudan? Can he fix Central Bank? Pleasure to welcome you to this program. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
So when we talk about Central Bank of South Sudan, we speak about your mandate, and there's always a confusion about the role of finance and the role of Central Bank. Can we maybe start by straightening that fact? Welcome.
Thank you, Mading. Thanks for having me. I'm Dier Tong, not brother of Adingor. Central banks are key institutions in each and every country in the world, and they have a very specific mandate. The role of the central bank in any country is to take up the responsibility of monetary management, and the key objectives and mandates for the Bank of South Sudan in particular are well stated in the Bank of South Sudan Act 2011. We have three key functions. Number one, we have the responsibility to make sure that we stabilize the exchange rate and inflation. Second, we are responsible for the supervision and maintenance of a sound financial system in the country. And the third, of course, is issues relating to payment systems, that we need to develop and maintain an efficient payment system in the country. Of course, there are other important functions that we exercise as the central bank. We are responsible for the printing and management of the currency, in our case, South Sudan pounds. We also provide services to the government. So central banks keeps the money of the nation. So we keep all the accounts of the government agencies and also the accounts of the commercial banks. So all these are the functions of a central bank anywhere in the world, and we exercise the same functions.
Let's start from your start. When you took over the mantle of central bank, you are the principal leader of the bank, and just give us a synopsis of your strategic plan. What are you looking at? We know the reality is grim, but the planning is ongoing.
Well, I wouldn't say that the reality is grim. There are challenges, of course. And if you are to address any challenges, or if you want to solve a problem, it is very important that you plan. And planning at least gives you a mindset, of knowing, of having a clear vision as where you want to go, and having a clear mission, and also having a key strategic objectives, because you cannot, of course, do everything at a time. So you have to have certain priorities, and you work towards those priorities. So for us in the Bank of South Sudan, we have developed a strategic plan, and we have clearly stated our mission. That our mission is really to ensure that we have a stable monetary system in the country. And at the same time, we have this vision, at least for the next 20 years, that the Bank of South Sudan must be as credible as any other central bank, at least in the region. And these are all governed by a set of values that we have also set for ourselves. So we want the central bank to be transparent. We want the central bank to be accountable. We want the central bank to be efficient, so that we do things in the most efficient manner. And we want to be professional, because central bank, the professionalism is very important in the central bank. And of course, we want to work as a team in the bank.
So the strategic plan is a roadmap, but what is the reality now?
The reality, of course, there are a lot of challenges, both external and internal. Of course, we know our country was in conflict, and that this conflict resulted, of course, into a massive reduction of oil production, because that's the commodity we depend on. Also, we were unlucky that the international oil prices were very low. So if you combine this, then you will have a very low reserve, foreign exchange reserve in the country. And of course, those issues now are being addressed, they are being reversed. Since the signing of the peace agreement, we have increased oil production. Also, the oil prices are going up. So we don't see grim future. We see that there is opportunities. And those opportunities, of course, we have to play our part, because central bank has a role to play. Other institutions also have a role to play. So this strategic plan in particular identifies really for the central bank what needs to be done. We acknowledge challenges, but we also see those opportunities that we think if we use them, we can stabilize the economy of South Sudan.
You live in South Sudan. You know the reality of South Sudan. We live off imports, and prices have been soaring, and central bank has been watching, doing nothing or very little. And on this key mandate, have you failed, or are you failing, or in the process of failing?
No, I wouldn't agree that the situation is that bad. Of course, as I have just said, in the past, because of the realities of conflict and oil production, and because, as you have rightly put it, we are a typical example of a small open economy. And an open economy means that the country is mainly either getting foreign exchange reserves from exports, which is in our case is fuel, is oil. We are exporting oil. And in return, we are almost importing everything. So our situation is more affected by external factors than the internal factors. And we need to address that. We need to address that. In order to address it, you have two options. You have the supply side option. Either we find other ways of increasing our foreign exchange reserves, whether we are exporting more oil, or whether we go into other activities like maybe mining, agriculture, so that we can export more commodities, and therefore we get more foreign currency to stabilize the economy. If we can't do that, and especially in the short run, then the option is, of course, for us to manage the demand side, where our money is going out a lot because the demand is very high. We have our children studying abroad. We have families are abroad. We are doing medical abroad. So we have to manage all this in order for us to stabilize the economy.
Quick question. Are you succeeding or failing to control the inflation?
No, I think we are succeeding. We are succeeding in controlling inflation. In 2014, inflation was over 600%. And you mentioned in the introduction the examples of Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Yes, the inflation was near to those levels. But since 2016, 17, and 18, and now, inflation has come down a lot. As I speak, the figures of December 2018, inflation came down to 30%. We are not, of course, saying that...
It has always been hovering over 100%.
No, inflation now, we have the figures. Inflation now has come down to about 30% because we have taken very specific measures. When I took over, and because of the low levels of reserves, which we were using as the only instruments to control inflation, we decided also to make sure that we are controlling liquidity in the economy. And because of our stringent control of liquidity, inflation has consistently, since June and July, has been coming down. And our target, in fact, when I took over, was to bring down inflation to middle double digits, which is around 50. We are targeting to bring it down from 150 to 50, around 50, 45, 60. But the last figures that we have now of December 2018, inflation has come down to 30. It is still very high if you compare it to the figures in the region. In the region, inflation is around 8%. And it is our target that we'll consistently use various instruments in order to align with the figures in the region.
If you talk about bringing down inflation, it means you are intervening in the market. And how are you doing that when your reserves are virtually nil?
But intervention in the market is not reserves alone. In fact, in many countries, central banks don't intervene with the reserves. Central banks always will have the objective to build their own reserves so that we can have a buffer. We can ensure that, as we are in importing countries, we make sure that we have reserves to bring in essential goods. So it is not correct that, because of low reserves, inflation must be high.
How are you intervening?
Yes, we have introduced a set of measures. We have recently launched our monetary and banking policies. The monetary and banking policies set out what instruments we are going to use. One instrument that we are using, of course, is what we call minimum reserve ratio. In order not for the banks to have access liquidity in their hands, we control and we have set the minimum reserve ratio to 20%. What does it mean? It means that banks can only use, 80% of the total deposit that they have. That's one instrument that we have.
That's what the law says.
Yes, that's one instrument.
That's not happening.
No, it is happening. It is happening consistently, and we produce every 2 weeks. We revise this. Every 2 weeks we revise this. But this is not the only instrument, Mading. We have other important instruments. Now we speak. We were meeting with the IMF in the last few days. We are going to introduce central bank bills. What central bank bills means is that central bank will be selling papers or buying papers from the public as a way of reducing the liquidity in the hands of the public, because when you have too much liquidity in the economy and you are not increasing your foreign exchange reserves, then the exchange rate will go up. So we are doing that.
Central bank is going to start behaving like central bank. You're fighting so that you have your mandate back.
Yeah, we have to because it is our role. The country is a system. It's a system whereby everybody has to do their part. So there is no one single body that is going to fix South Sudan. It is going to be all the subsystem have to do their part, and if you do that, then the whole, will be the goal will be achieved. So with us in the central bank, we want to fight our part and to contribute to fixing South Sudan in that sense.
Let's take a break from that. Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. Welcome back to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor, and with us is Honorable Dier Tong, the Governor, Central Bank, Republic of South Sudan. We talk about their role in stabilizing the economy, the prices in the economy. We are back for the final round. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And when we talk about fixing South Sudan, everyone is doing it in the area. That's what you are saying. And in your area, what have you been doing to ensure that when you leave this office, South Sudan is better than when you found it?
Of course, as I said earlier, the primary function of the central bank is inflation, controlling inflation. So for me, that's the focus. That's the focus, because if you have stable inflation, that can encourage investment. Foreign investors will come. It can encourage production. It can also support, the fixed income, individuals, or those who are receiving salaries, because salaries are not changing all the time. So if inflation is moving all the time and then the salaries are fixed, then definitely you are not supporting the low-income sections of our population. So for us, really, controlling inflation is going to be key. And in order for us to do that, because sometimes the monetary functions conflicts with the fiscal functions. Because the Minister of Finance, of course, is required to be paying salaries, and sometimes if the cash flows are not well managed, there can be a deficit and they may need financing from the central bank. If you provide too much funding, then that will impact inflation. So we need to coordinate with the Minister of Finance in that sense, so that we make sure that doing their work should not conflict, with what we are doing. So that's one thing in terms of inflation.
Are you cooperating with finance, and what would you say is your relationship?
Yes, that's happening. That's happening. One reason why the inflation came down, it is because of the cooperation with finance, and finance and ourselves were convinced that providing excessive liquidity in the economy will raise up inflation, and inflation will disturb everything. So in that sense, we are cooperating, and we have regular meetings in order for us really to make sure that there is a coordination between the fiscal and monetary authorities.
Here is the key crisis and a nightmare for you and for the public, is the dollarization of the economy of South Sudan. The government plans budget in SSP and spends in USD. That is a crisis for you. Have you flagged it? What have you done about it?
I would say
the government is spending money that they don't have.
No, that's not true, because the government cannot spend the money that they don't have. Otherwise,
They put something in the budget, and yet they are not able to finance what is in the budget. And spending as the money comes.
Minister of Finance will answer that. But what I wanted to underscore is that, of course, there is element of dollarization in the economy, and I wouldn't say it is driven by the government. It is mainly driven by the private sector, because when inflation was too high, the economists say always, that human beings consumers are rational. They are rational people. So if the inflation is moving up to 500%, 700%, then as a rational person, I would try to find how do I protect the value of my assets. And that's why people were dollarizing. So the onus is on us. We must fight inflation, because if we fight inflation, our currency will strengthen, we will gain confidence, and people will not want to dollarize. So dollarization is a symptom of the state of our economy, inflation and all those things. So if we address inflation, definitely we will address the issue of dollarization.
Let me get into the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
The issue is that the Ministry of Finance keeps account in USD with Central Bank, not even SSP. And so that means you have no role completely. This is a serious issue.
No, we have a role. The Bank of South Sudan Act is very clear about that. Bank of South Sudan Act gives the responsibility of
it gives the responsibility
of the development.
Is that a reality that
of the development of course, and maintenance of official reserves. It is the role of the central bank. Of course, what some of the things that we have now is historical. We need to work on it. You know, because when we were with Sudan, it wasn't possible for us to leave Sudan to be keeping the foreign reserves alone, because otherwise it was difficult for us even to bring to bring our own goods to the country here. So what was done that time, because Central Bank, or the Bank of South Sudan, the Bank of Southern Sudan by then, was a branch of the Central Bank of Sudan. So we allowed the Minister of Finance that time to have to keep part of the share of the government of South Sudan that time in dollars. So that's a historical thing, and it will be addressed. And we have been talking about this with finance to make sure that the full responsibility of managing the official reserves of the country is under the hands of the central bank.
I want to talk about your impact as the leader of central bank, and you see that issue. You are not able to build reserves because if you cannot have access to the hard currency, you cannot intervene in the market. So when you see that, as the governor of central bank, what have you done about it?
No, but Mading, when we talk,
notify Parliament and other bodies?
No, but Mading, when we talk about the official reserves of the country, you're not talking about the accounts of the central bank. The official reserves of the country involves all the foreign currency balances that the government has, whether it is in the account of the finance, or it is account of the central bank, or it is in the account of any other institution. These are all part of the official reserves, because we can use them for external payments of the country. What we need is just to organize that so that we are more efficient, you know, because when you keep them under one umbrella, there will be more efficiency, because you can, the balances can be in the account of the Ministry of Finance or another ministry. When another ministry is struggling, you will not easily access that. But they are part of the official reserves of the country.
So all the money being kept at central bank is part of the foreign reserve?
Yes, it is part of the foreign reserve.
Speaking about that, you have lost credibility. And savings for commercial banks squandered by central bank, you sold them to the government, and commercial banks are becoming obsolete, they are collapsing because of your action. Is that reserve you are talking about, the money that is being used?
No, but also you have to be fair to us. Of course, we cannot deny that some of the balances of private institutions were used at a time when our oil production was almost very low, and when the oil prices were very down. Of course, a country is a country. There were challenges, and some of the reserves were used. But since 2017, we have been addressing this issue massively. And if you talk to commercial banks, I think they will give you the answer. We have significantly now reduced that balance, and we think it is now at a manageable levels. And banks now are beginning to operate normally, because that issue, we have given it a priority and we have addressed it.
As governor of central bank, you're supposed to be advisor to the government. And when you see that your mandate is being weakened, you're keeping quiet. You're keeping quiet.
We're not keeping quiet. We're not keeping quiet. Of course, you know, when we talk about our mandate and the independence of the central bank, of course, central bank doesn't have absolute independence. But we always associate the independence of the central bank with the importance of being an accountable central bank, okay, and a transparent central bank. So we are now trying our best. You know, we have now we are improving our communication function in the central bank. We are linking up with the parliament. We give reports to the Minister of Finance. So we are being transparent. So I don't accept that completely we are doing nothing about the independence. The independence of the central bank is not for the sake of the governor of the central bank or the officials in the central bank, but it is because it helps us to manage the relationship between the monetary function and the fiscal function within our economy.
The Republic of South Sudan is oil-producing nation, and in fact, it has ramped up production in previous sites that were not activated.
Yes.
And there's no change in the market. The money is not coming to central bank. And what do you think of the fact that the money is brought through the airport and distributed?
That's not.
You're not able to keep the money.
That's not true. That's not true. In fact, any money coming into South Sudan dollars are cleared by us, unless it is money that has not come through the central bank. But any money that comes through the central bank, we can trace it. We have completed the audit, you know.
All the money is coming to central bank. All the money from the oil reserves, from the oil sales, is coming to central bank.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that if the money, any money that is coming to the central bank, we are accountable for it.
Is the money coming to central bank, or some money coming to central bank?
No, I can't answer your question whether the money is coming to the central bank or some money, but I'm talking about the money that is coming to the central bank.
Because
so the money
are
that
asking, where is the money? The economy has not changed.
But the economy has changed, Mading. Of course, it has not changed to the level that we would want. We want to have a stability that will benefit our people. But let me make this point very clear. If you are talking about change, I talk about inflation. I talk, even now we speak, salaries are going to be paid, or I think they are going to be paid within this week. It is because of the money that is coming to this country. Of course, there is a big backlog. You know, that's why people don't realize, because when there was a backlog of salaries for 5 months, for 6 months, so what we are paying now is considered to be money that was not paid 6 months ago or a year ago. But the money is being paid at the moment as you speak.
We know that central bank faces a lot of interference, political interference. You are not left alone. So these issues are not your fault alone, and not even this has been happening historically, as you say. But we know that for us to fix South Sudan, central bank has to exercise its mandate without interference. And this was resolved in 2014 MOU between central bank and finance on the streamlining of oil revenue sales. And is that being implemented?
The memorandum of understanding between the central bank and the Minister of Finance was developed. I think at the time I was a staff director general in the central bank. So it was developed, but we are now reviewing it because it was not signed. So we are reviewing it so that it is signed and it abides the relationship between us and. But of course, you know, this issue of conflict between central bank and interference, it is not a South Sudan issue. It is all over the world. And the role is on us, as on myself, as the leader of this institution, to assert the position of the central bank, why the central bank should be autonomous, what are the benefits. Because when you tell people that, you know, central bank need to be independent, it looks as if you want to do your own things, you know, in the corner. Nobody should question you. That's not the meaning. The meaning is that when central bank is autonomous, then the function of managing inflation and exchange rate becomes a mandate of the central bank. And if there are issues that central bank sees conflicts with that, then the central bank will stick with their mandate, and those issues have to be solved separately. There are many countries, even recently in India, the governor of the Reserve Bank of India had to resign because he felt that there is interference in their own functions. So what I'm saying is that central bank has. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying central bank has to stand their ground also. it shouldn't be.
There's no one else who is central bank. Are you going to stand your ground?
I will stand my ground because I have to defend the law. The law of the land for the central bank is the Bank of South Sudan Act 2011. So I have to stick to what the law says because that's the mandate that is given to me.
Are you making decisions in the best interest of South Sudan economy?
Yes, I think that's what we are doing because when we say that we have to reduce borrowing from the central bank, it is because I know the impact of the borrowing from the central bank, printing money, has negative implication. In fact, when you print money and the inflation increases, you are taxing the poor person in Gudeli, in Jebel Denka, in all those places. So if we are to make decisions for the interest of our people, we have to defend this. Because if the price, the prices goes up, it is the poor laborer who receives 1,500 who will be affected because they will not be in a position to buy the bread. So we have to stand that ground because it is not for the interest of the central bank, but it is for the interest of the public.
Governor, thanks for coming on Fixing South Sudan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.